Rox, how are you? Always with the interesting questions. I think hope is a funny thing, you know? I think for a lot of folks, especially folks who haven't gone through real hardship, hope is this kind of idealized kind of light and beautiful thing that like buoys you in dark times and falls into like a category similar to like the kind of wonderful and genuine and heartfelt joy or idealism that comes with like falling in love. I think there are different types of hope, and I think Charles has certainly had that sort of hope many times. I think, especially when he's on his own, or and I think Charles also feels on his own even when he's surrounded by people. Friends included. I think he finds a lot of hope in books. I think he's actually a pretty voracious reader, and I think oftentimes, especially when things aren't good for the gang, that might be, I don't know what the actual price would be at the time, but those nickel, like really short adventure series. But I think he also is really well read. I can see him also finding hope in places that some of us would consider odd or morbid. Prometheus, for example, doing good works, bringing fire to man, right? And his punishment by his fellow gods was to be chained to a rock and have his liver devoured by eagles. But because he's immortal, it would grow back every day. And so he went through this agony daily, this torture. And yet, he also knew that man was thriving as a result of that sacrifice. And I'm not saying that Charles sees himself as a martyr. I think sometimes he takes hope from stories like that in the idea of I am doing good works, and now all I have to do is endure, because the thing that is facing me now will never kill me. And as long as it doesn't kill me, I will get through this. And I think Charles is not Christian. In fact, I think he's I'm not going to say anti-Christian, but I think he is very suspicious of organized religion, especially because of what he went through. But there are phrases and sayings that I think have stayed with him, like no weapon forged against me shall prosper, right? I think hope is Charles' greatest strength, but his hope is not necessarily like a dreamy hope. It is more a resolve that that I guess only really fits the definition of hope because he can't prove it. He doesn't know it, right? It does require faith, but it's mostly faith in himself. That he will get through this hardship and he will see the other side. I think that Charles battles that a lot because good things happen, right? The Wapiti people, for a moment at least, have the hope of something resembling safety as they venture north, but at what cost? High Honor Charles finds the good in him, right, and his dignity. At what cost? And I have the feeling when he builds the house at Beecher's Hope with John and Uncle, that's probably the most nervous he's ever been, the most anxious he's ever been, because it feels so good and it feels like he's fulfilled his best friend's dying wish and he's succeeded. But Charles's life has never been easy, and so there is, well, on the one hand, there is that idea of like, see, like, if I can weather the storm and be of service, good things happen. But there's that like lingering shadow, right, lingering at the side, at the, like the corners of his vision, like this thing that keeps his hackles off of, like, so when does this all go wrong? And I think that's a real struggle for him because it means that he often doesn't enjoy the good times the way maybe he could, because his life has shown him that they just don't last. I think in many battles, in many struggles, Charles has been the last man standing, through both might, and oftentimes, especially when he was young, sheer force of will. But when you're the last one standing, it means that anyone that was standing with you has fallen. I think Charles leaves Beecher's Hope hopeful. And I think he also leaves hoping he can take the specter of doom that seems to follow him, and maybe he can take that with him up north. And unfortunately, that's not the way it goes. And I think when we leave Charles and he's headed to Canada, I think he's always looking for tribe is not the right word here, especially given the context. He's always looking for his pack, his family, the people made of a similar stuff that will survive the hardships that are headed his way, that will weather the storms with him. I think he's looking for who that is. Sometimes I wonder if he ever finds that in a person like Sadie. But I don't know. I like to keep that open-ended and think that I think Charles's biggest hope is that he will find a love that survives. And I think that keeps him going through a lot of stuff. Man, now you really got my brain going. Thanks as always for inviting me to venture into less traveled paths. I'm grateful for it, Rocks.